Welcome to Reading the Green, our golf and fantasy sports show. My name is Mike with Jordan and Kyle on Tuesday, June 25th. This is episode 115, the Rocket Mortgage preview and Travelers Championship recap. Gentlemen, welcome to the pod. Jordan, we've already been through it like twice, but your golf game, you're pumped coming back from the US Open, all these good vibes, and then tonight sounds like it just came crashing down.
Yeah, brutal. It was, I played the same 9 holes as I did last week. The wind was about 20 miles an hour less this week, and I shot 9 strokes worse.
But wait, what did you hit? What did you hit up for your third shot on 3? Tell us about your round, Jordan.
No, it was all of it was bad.
I'm like, what is the third hole on the back? Oh, that's that downhill. Did you bomb it down that number 12 on the, or no, you probably started on.
That was one of my best drives of the day. Was 12. I was 60 yards off and almost bladed it just the back edge of the green and then 3-putted for a bogey.
That's tough green. That's tough green.
I was also 70 yards out, which is a distance I'm normally pretty good at, and I just literally couldn't
Didn't you say that your North Carolina prep, though, was specifically 50 to 100 yards?
Yeah. And
we should probably get one hot take from the courses we played on the trip, Mike, from Jordan, since he was not able to.
That's a good point.
Yeah. We
had a really nice breakdown of the 3, which, by the way, I know I texted this, but I'm still kind of reveling in the fact that Mid Pines, Southern Pines, and Tobacco Road are all in most of the top 100 public courses lists. Like, I didn't even consult that before we went. So I just even feel better about our choices, especially Tobacco Road, just even all the press it's getting. But yeah, Jordan, what's the quick rundown for you?
Tobacco Road was my favorite, partially because I played the best, and also just because it was a stupid course, right? Like the bunkers, the like V's that you were hitting through that were 100 yards out and you couldn't see anything on the other side of them. It's just fun, right? It's not normal golf, right? If you want to go play traditional golf, Tobacco Road, you will not like, right? Then Mid Pines and Southern Pines were amazing, but Tobacco Road is just different, right? You don't get that anywhere.
They don't build Cal said the exact same thing. Like, if you're going to be a snob about it, like just don't go, and that's okay. It's not for everybody, but you're right. They don't build golf courses like that a lot of places, even like abandoned dunes. That's not the style of these big modern golf courses. This thing is wonky. And then you said today.
Yeah. He holed it from I was that exact same spot. Pin was almost the same spot. His rolled straight in though, and mine came back down off the hill.
Which you're going based on my testimony, which it did, because you were down 20 feet below the surface of the green.
That might have been the best sand shot I've ever hit.
That did remind me on that hole. I don't remember if we hit on this last time, Mike. There was something else that happened on that same hole. Somebody else was in a bunker behind the green, and somebody had an amazing kick save. I don't remember who was all involved in this.
I did. You semi-bladed the shot as it was coming in hot. You were like, stop it! And I threw my foot out and took the ball off my ankle to prevent it from going down a 20-foot bunker. But it didn't. Afterwards, it definitely did not seem worth the pain. I would have just walked down the stairs to get your ball.
In my defense, the reason I said stop it, that was the only time during the round, is the bunker I was hitting out of had no sand. It was hard pan, and wouldn't surprise anyone. My game is not suited to that. And then secondly, it was hot, it was slow, and I just wasn't going to go back down the bunker. So we gave me my handicap max on that hole, so it was okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The golf was obviously great down there. Jordan, I hope you find your form by next Tuesday.
Me too. I really need to find it by our member guest in 3 weeks.
Well, I know a really good golf coach that works at your club that does wonders.
I don't do lessons.
I know you don't do lessons. I'm just saying. All right, I do have a question, a non-golf question for you guys. You both were tuned into I think you're tuned into the Stanley Cup Final, Game 7, Florida Panthers versus Edmonton Oilers. I only watched the last 5 minutes. Florida wins, close game. Jordan, you commented that it was really too bad they let in just a really soft goal. midway through the second period. That ends up being the deciding factor. But we're all hockey guys. I think the best team won. Florida was probably the most complete team. They added a bunch of guys at the trade deadline that made them even more complete. Oilers have a lot of great players, obviously the best player in hockey. What is it like for Connor McDavid to win the Conn Smythe, be by far the best player, and still not win the Stanley Cup?
Well, it's for the whole, and this is the thing that's different about any other
Mhm.
sport that everyone has to keep in mind, right? It's for the whole playoffs. So it had to be McDavid. Like, yes, Bob deserved it in the finals more, I would say, but the holistic view, it was McDavid. But it's awkward to go up and receive that trophy when you lose. For sure.
You could tell he was just kind of like, I would trade a dozen of these
Oh yeah.
to hold the Stanley Cup. So it's hard. I'm sure it's only happened, what, like 6-7 times in the history of the NHL that the losing team had the Conn Smythe. So they don't happen very often that someone has to be on that end of it.
Was he deserving? I mean, he had two great games.
42 points in the playoffs. I mean, the only
I guess it's full playoffs. That's the
and the playoffs are so long. Like you just kind of I've forgotten about the first
July. Like NHL almost went to the 4th of July.
I know. So I there's nothing better than a close Game 7 in the NHL for the Stanley Cup. Like some team is going to hoist it with a huge celebration. Like it was really cool to watch. But I think the casual hockey fans certainly would have appreciated Connor McDavid getting the stage at the end of that.
It was a great series, like you said. It was just good to see. The only unfortunate thing is that this game is taking place on June 24th. That is a little just in Florida. With Florida winning. And Florida has had a team that's been part of the Stanley Cup Finals for what, 5 straight years? Yeah. Get out of here, the state of Florida.
I do. The last thing I'll say on it.
I really wanted a goal. I wanted overtime.
Yeah.
I want the Stanley Cup Game 7 to be even if Florida wins it with a goal in overtime, sudden death, that I'm okay with that. But just that excitement just is a different level.
It is. The players almost didn't even. The players in the scrum in the corner holding out of the puck didn't even realize. I think it was so loud in there, didn't even realize the scoreboard had hit 0.
Yeah.
And their reaction was really delayed. I was like, it almost felt like they were forcing it, but
they were looking. Or I saw them looking. Like, is it over? What was? And then they celebrating.
And the Edmonton guys were so dang tired at that point.
Yeah, I think that was poor coaching.
The last thing I'll say was, I watched probably a dozen Paul Maurice post-game videos on the ice, off the ice, all that. Pretty crazy to have a head coaching job in the NHL for 26 years and not win a Stanley Cup. Not that like every coach that's coached that long should, but like it's hard to have the staying power in the league and not have success. Most guys would be out of the league by then. So testament. Kyle, thoughts on Paul Maurice?
Well, that's my biggest complaint about hockey and their hires. It's so they retread so damn much. Like, who gets 5 shots in 20 years at a job when you're not good at it?
But a lot of those guys, I don't know. Like, I'd be interested to go back and look to see how many guys though have cracked 25 years without a cup. And are those a lot of those retreads who you don't like had a cup at one point? Laviolette, Tortella, Boudreau, all those guys. They won at some point, but I hear you. The retread is really gross, especially when you're like the Wild and someone's coming through the doors. It's even John Hines. Like I'm not a John Hines guy. I'm like I don't even know why, but he might be a coach for 20 more years. You never know. Anyways, I'll pull us back to golf. Kyle, you had one topic. Some leaderboard you sent me that, perfectly honest, you texted me this. I had no idea what I was looking at. You didn't give any information about where this came from. And I was, to be honest, I was trying to figure out, was this somebody's betting card for the week?
I just realized I didn't give much background.
No,
there, did I?
You just said this is what you said. The text was a picture with a bunch of names of golfers, except I thought that DeChambeau was Deshaun, and so I was thinking Deshaun Watson for whatever reason. And the text was, to Willie Z was all him. No clue how he pulled out Batia, Scott, or Svensson. So then I was thinking, is this somebody that like picked winners this year? And you're trying to figure out like, oh, how did he come up with Akshay Batia this year? And why don't you fill us in then on what this actually is?
So did you eventually get there and what this was, I guess?
I did eventually get there and what this was, because that's when I said, why don't more people call Scotty Shuffler? And I realized that it came from
yeah, my 7-year-old. He likes to draw. He likes to draw games, write out brackets, and I walked over tonight and he was drawing out a golf leaderboard. So of course Scotty's winning at 12 under. Rory Tiger was up there and T2 with Rory, Xander Schauffele, Bryson. But then these are the names I highlighted there. Somehow he got Ryan Fox, Akshay Bhatia, and Adam Scott and Adam Svensson, and then Patrick Cantlay. That was his leaderboard he had before I joined the conversation, and he asked me to provide more golfers. I don't know how he got those other names.
So a couple of highlights. One, he's writing these out as best he can. There's a couple of spelling mistakes. Scotty is spelled Schuffler. Scotty Shuffler, which is just so apropos. So apropos. Yeah. DeChambeau, DeShambo. Perfect. Like, why would you spell it like that? Batia obviously missing a letter, but the funniest one was Ryan Fox. Like, your dad bets way too much on one golfer when the 7-year-old is putting a random New Zealand golfer into the top 10.
I do highlight Ryan Fox a lot. Yes. Dad, why are we watching Ryan Fox on random hole 16 on featured holes? I don't know.
Yeah. Good stuff. I mean, your guy has been doing that since last few years. He was drawing X's and O's with NFL teams and football plays and all that. He might be a coaching mastermind here at some point.
He likes his sports. It's hopefully he can take him somewhere someday. We'll have to see.
All right. I know Jordan isn't going to be able to make it for the whole pod, so I want to talk about the Travelers a little bit while he's here, because there is some wild stuff going on there. Actually, before I do that, are you guys drinking beer tonight?
I have one. So I'm just finishing. I have not. I'm pulling a Jordan here, right? I have not made a run in quite some time. So just finishing a Foggy Geezer. Just
Isn't
the guy
that
that highlights this.
That's
the same.
more Mike than me.
The same. No, the highlights the same beer 3 pods in a row.
No, that is definitely a Jordan.
Yeah. I finishing a Foggy Geezer now, but next on deck is a modest false pattern.
Standbys. Yeah, I'm going standbys. And while I was, I think, gone, when we were gone down at the Open, my wife had gone to the liquor store, because I think I even said this. I was leaving with nothing in the fridge. Yeah. And so she had your wife over, and she was bragging a little bit to the neighbors the other night that they're the only 2 gals they can think of that when they have a mom night, they crack open 3-4 beers, and good ones. They all were IPAs. She came back with a bunch of flagships though, which I applaud her for getting good breweries, good IPAs. So I'm back to an old standby I haven't had in a long time, Mirror Universe. Mm-hmm. From Fair State, but there was Raindrops in there. There was some Pseudo Sue, a little bit of Loose Line, and then I also went for a Roselle over dinner. So,
well done,
lineup. Well done, yeah, very well done. Jordan, you abstaining post league? Gotta settle down.
I had two Coors Lights. I have another 8-hour meeting tomorrow after an 8-hour meeting today, so I am
taking it easy. I get it. Well, let me ask you this question. Did you watch any of the Travelers Championship?
What is that?
Yeah, okay. Did you look on social media?
I did a little bit, because they were replaying it every night when I would get into bed and put it on, but I did not watch much.
We were glued on Sunday, actually, because my wife was out golfing in an event on Sunday afternoon, and so the kids got up from their naps, and it was perfect timing. The tournament had started a little bit earlier in the day, so it was just coming down to the heat of the moment at about 4:30 on Sunday afternoon. And the kids, every tournament, they're getting a little more into it, and they're seeing a lot of Tom Kim and a lot of Scotty Scheffler, and they're hanging on every putt, and they realize that Tom Kim has to make this 12-footer, whatever it was, to tie Scotty. Now they're all huge Scotty fans, as they should be. Any kid watching golf this year is going to be a huge Scotty fan. And then all hell breaks loose on 18, and that's when he just had to start answering questions about what's a protest? What are the police doing? Where is that person going? What are they spraying? What's going to happen now? I mean, literally at one point, my daughter, who is 6, said, why can't they just put them back behind the ropes? It was probably just an accident. That I said, oh, you think it was an accident that they showed up with special T-shirts to talk about something that they want to talk about while going on the green during a golf tournament and spraying spray paint all over the place? And she's like, they should go to jail.
I hadn't thought about that angle because we were not watching it live. Trying to explain what happened on 18 to little kids.
Yep. Well, let's just start there. Is this the all-time protest fan interruption on a golf course? Like, can you think of a better fan interruption than this one?
Outside of some drunk guy yelling mashed potatoes when somebody smashes a ball. I mean, you're probably the best one to answer that. Right?
My favorite fan interruption, to be honest, is Ryder Cup 2008. Dude making the putt on the green.
No, yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
The practice round.
Yeah. This is wild. I mean, there were 6-7 people running around out there. You got the dude just walking who gets laid out by the cop.
Yeah. No, it was an interesting one. I was surprised they didn't actually like try and I know they're green people, but they didn't try and like ruin the golf course, right? Like have a squeeze bottle of gasoline and
I think
ruin the green, but it would defeat the purpose of
seeing as they were part of like Stop Big Oil, that is like what they're fighting against. Come out with gasoline and pour it on the green.
This is what gasoline does. You know, like there are ways they could have made that a thing.
A lot of mixed messages there.
At least biodegradable paint. That would make a little bit more sense.
I did really get a kick. Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I saw some of the videos of the tackles and everything, but since I was not watching live, how did they do it right to interrupt the golf, or did that group just get to the green, or how did it play out?
No one had putted yet. Guys were kind of standing around, starting to line up their putts. So I believe Scotty was going to putt first. He was off the green, and then it broke out, and really nobody left the green. Scotty and Akshay and Tom Kim just stood there. And I think part of it was the fans no one was moving that fast. No one was going after the players. 18 police officers descended immediately. It seemed pretty under control.
Yeah. Well, and the first guy that came from behind Scotty and ran into the bunker and then up. So it's not even like they were close, right? And just jumped out. Scotty just he's looking around what is going on? Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, it was the broadcast didn't really break away either. They did not zoom out to show what was going on. They stayed mostly focused on the players, but they did not cut away. They did drop audio, I guess, because there was a lot of asshole chants coming from the gallery. But on No Laying Up, they talked a lot about this scene, and they do some really fun breakdown of it. But there was a suggestion. They were almost applauding the broadcast team for not cutting away.
Yes,
because
awesome.
Because it was well, people are going to see it anyways on social media. There's really no reason to cut to commercial for this. Not protecting anybody, and they probably did the right thing by just staying focused on the players.
Don't show it. Don't show what's going on, right? Because then you're just amplifying the message.
Yeah, or if something goes sideways, then you're in a bit of trouble. But yeah, so it was wild. As I said, watching it with small children, it was definitely a moment to educate a little bit. But at the end of the day, action gets back to it. Scotty leaves the winning putt on the lip, and then Tom Kim rolls in his 12-footer to extend to a playoff. And it was pretty cool. Pretty cool scene. So I'll ask you this question. this was about as dramatic as the end of a golf tournament can get when the rest of the golf tournament is fairly unsatisfying. Are signature events doing it for you? Like, is this what you want out of a signature event? Would you rather it be more of a slog? Like, what are we going to do with a 70-person field at TPC River Highlands?
For me, no. But unfortunately, I don't think we are the target fan group for the changes, right? We are still watching and we're still playing DFS at a lower level than we would in a bigger event. I'm going to play more DFS lineups and spend more money this week than I did last week. That's just because I'm signature events are stale for me. Yes, it makes for a great Sunday, but my excitement to tune in Thursday, Friday is much lower.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I saw the TV ratings and I don't have the numbers right in front of me. They were up year over year. They were up over this event in the past, and that has been universal across the board. Now, will they run out of that? Because, at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is put the best people in the field and create the finishes like they've been able to create so far. So it's catch-22, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because yeah, there's some good elements to it, makes it for some fun Sundays, but give me a cut, give me the full field. I want to be sweating over the Mac Meisners of the world.
Yeah, that is a pretty niche audience, the Friday cut sweats, but that is, and I like, there's a lot of people in social media out there that think the tour, and they have with Smiley Kaufman happy hour, the tour could do a lot better job of capturing some of that ancillary action outside of Sunday afternoon. I would say that this was benefited by the fact of an extremely easy golf course, 70 excellent golfers, elite golfers playing the full 4 days. You had guys like Cam Young who were kind of out of the event turn around and go shoot a 59. Like, that was out there for any player at any point through the 4 rounds. And so that probably helped a little bit that there was something to tune. I watched the rest of Saturday because he was going to shoot 59, and then he birdied the first 4 holes on Sunday, and it was like, well, I better watch early round action now. So we can move on from the recap of the Travelers and the action, but anything else to say about Scotty? I mean, he won this golf tournament, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate Scotty because I was in Iowa this past weekend, and I've actually won money a couple times this year just by betting Scotty when he has one bad round and getting that pretty decent plus odds. I mean, as decent as you can get with Scotty, and then he comes back and wins. So it did not work out for us as we talked about last week in Carolina, but it did again for me this week. So thank you, Scotty. Thanks for just continuing to win everything, I guess, from that perspective, because otherwise it sucks to bet right now when he's in the field.
Making a lot of people money. We'll shift over to a couple of reading the green housekeeping items. Listener League. I had a really good feeling about someone named Tom/Tony this week.
You and your theme lineups. Now I hate that you're back to it and you won with one. Now we're gonna have to deal with it the rest of the
year. They pay off way more than they should, to be honest.
See, it's some guys do skill stacking, some guys do T waves. You just got to find a thread of a name game or a thread of something else to pull on and get different that way.
It limits my player pool when it's Tom Fleetwood, Tom Kim, Tom Dietrich, Tom Hoagie, Justin Thomas, and Tom Finau.
Love that Tom Finau guy.
and kind of that was the clincher for you there, right?
Exactly. Well, Truffle Shuffle and Bo Big Time round out the top 3. It was I guess, reasonably solid week. It's just tough. It's tough with the no cut events. We typically have very middling performance. JTP was our top power index play. He backed it up, but he backed it up on Sunday. He shot something like 2 over. Something like that. Sam Burns also, you might want a done play. He also sucked, but JTP not really showing up. Otherwise was okay. DFS wise, I was okay. Want to shout out the Pat Mayo kind of tiered picks in his newsletter last week. He was our top contributor. He was all over, just pulling it up here. He was all over Tom Kim, Tom Hoagie. So he was out of the Toms as well. Also Xander Schauffele, Seamus Power were his top 4 picks. So Tom's, it's the Toms. The guys that had the Toms did really well this week.
We should have. Too bad we didn't have a Tom name game. Is there a tie to TPC River Highlands we can make with Tom's? Is there Tom's River? Is New Jersey? That's not close. I don't know. Grassminister out here.
It's all right. It's all right. I want to shout out one more gutsiest play of the week. Not a lot of gutsy plays doing all that way. Go all the way down to Robert McIntyre being mentioned by Zach Thompson over at Fantasy Labs. Bobby Mack finished middle of the pack. These 70-person fields why they just got to cut them to 50. Just have a 20-person cut. I don't understand.
Give us, I would take that over nothing, but give us 100 and cut it to 60, and that's your signature events.
Just make it 70 and cut it to 35 and guarantee the other 35 all the same amount of money.
Well, there's that.
The people that don't make the cut each get $50,000 or whatever making the cut equates to, but still get some skin in the game.
Make all those 35 guys go out solo, and then whoever plays behind Patrick Cantlay is just hating life.
Fastest, whoever plays fastest wins.
I mean, perfectly honest.
You can play through people, over people, whatever.
Some of this, I was going to bring this up. I will bring this topic up later, but at a tournament that I've played at in the past, not in my division, but in some of the lower divisions, if you don't make the cut after a certain day, they send you across the street to the par 3 course, and you got to finish the tournament on the par 3 course. Like, how funny would that be? They got to go across the street and play the Muni.
I love it.
All right. Well, Jordan, before you go, I know you said you got to run. One and done this week was actually kind of interesting, and I whiffed a little bit. Sam Burns really burned me on the weekend, but a little bit of separation now at the top. Do we have a new leader?
Yeah, but nothing really this week. Like, there were 13 people that all had tied for 5th place with Cantlay, Finau, and I see a Justin Thomas. They got $700,000. So not much movement. Year to date, Chample's still up by $2.5 million. We can't let him win again. And then there's a group between 16 and 13 million, another 7 people. Yeah. Kyle,
do we know Champles?
Right there at 10th.
Who knows Champles?
I do.
How's he doing this?
I don't know. It's not by helping me in fantasy football by making trades, because I sent him about 35 trade offers in the last week, and he didn't accept any of them.
We're lucky Jordan has to go, Mike. Otherwise, you would get another week of fantasy.
I know. We can do it. We can do it next
Right.
week. We can do it next week.
Can you believe that defensive lineman from Indianapolis got picked? Like, he's going to be dropped with halfway through the season. No point.
I have questions that I'm not going to ask. I think we should turn our attention to the Rocket Mortgage Classic preview. Jordan, are we going to say goodbye?
All right, I'm going to dip.
Okay. All right.
Concentrate on some work here. All right. Thanks, gents.
See ya. Kyle, I have a question for you. We're headed to Detroit. Headed to Detroit Golf Club.
Detroit Golf Club.
Not Detroit Country Club. The Detroit Country Club being the home of the famed Pine to Palm Golf Tournament, which is not in Detroit and not at a country club. It's just at a place called Detroit Country Club.
Yeah, and I love it. And it's only like 6,300 yards, something like that. Anyway,
max. There are 6 drivable par 4s now, I think, with all the length everyone has gained. Side note, though, and I just talked to the chairman this evening because I'm on the wait list. Like, we're going for the week. I have the clearance to play. So this has been really tough because for the listeners that are not familiar with some of these golf tournaments, this is a stroke play match play deal. 36 holes of qualifying stroke play, 64-person match play bracket if you make it. So it's potentially 8 rounds of golf in 6 days if you win. Not happening for me. Deepest I've gone is final 8 and final 16 a couple of times, but it's a big week of golf that once I started having kids, it's really difficult to pull that off. But kids are getting a little bit older, grandparents are becoming a little more helpful, and I have the clearance to play, but I'm on the wait list in 2 of the divisions, both the championship division and the mid-am division, because they've been capping the field kind of post-pandemic to help with pace of play, and it caught me by surprise.
Yeah. So how far down the list are you? And like,
I
when is
am,
this still?
yeah, the tournament is in mid-August. The refund cutoff date is July 15th. So if you're going to withdraw, you got to withdraw by the 15th, or else there's no refund on your entry. Um, I am second on the list for the championship division, which I talking to the chairman, he said 15 people are going to drop out in the next 2 months, no question. So he's like, you for sure will be in on that. There's probably, I don't know what they're letting in there, maybe 180 players to make 64 spots. So that's tough. Like, it's a lot of college kids, really good AMs. Like, I've done well, but it's definitely hard. The mid-am division is what I was excited about because I haven't played in this tournament since turning 35. The last time I played in it, I was 34. And I've been really excited about mid-am because the schedule's a little lighter, it's a little more family friendly, and there's only 32 players or 40 players in the flight, and you got to make the top 16. But I'm 7th on the wait list for that.
Ooh, yeah, that's
And
a lot.
he was like,
That's
he
a
was
lot
like,
of WDs.
yeah, out of 40 players that have signed up, I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, you need what was the LPGA tournament recently had that food bug go through or something like that the night before? You need something like
Well, and
that.
I looked at the list of players that are already signed up, and like these guys are all like guys that have played it a bunch, so the chances of them dropping out are
All right, so
unlikely. But
you're playing the champion. All right, you
we'll
better get
see.
that game in
Yeah.
shape, Nick.
Oh, it's feeling good though. It's feeling good, but we got a lot of work to do if that's the way it's going to go. So, not going to Detroit Country Club. We're going to Detroit Golf Club, a Donald Ross course that has been kind of oddly tempered over the years. The greens have calmed down. This is not going to be your Donald Ross, North Carolina type golf courses. And for whatever reason, it's turned into a bomber's paradise, which I don't know. That is the type of player that's won often, but I don't know if that's really how the golf course sets up. We saw Ricky Fowler win here last year to break his streak of his winless streak of several years. But then we've seen guys like Cameron Davis and Bryson DeChambeau and Taylor Pendrith and other bombers do well. So
Tony Finau.
Kyle,
Yeah.
Tony Finau, yeah, exactly. So what's going on here at Detroit Golf Club that leads us to either the bomber narrative or what I've also seen a little bit is the short game narrative?
Yeah, it is a birdie fest. It's a shorter course that they can't lengthen. So I think that is what has changed it when the modern golf. It's not really a great setup, a great test for modern golf, unfortunately. You can bomb and gouge the place to death. But at the same time, I don't think you have to be a bomber because there is not Pinot. Like if you miss and you're shorter, if you're off the tee, the rough is not Pinot. There's not hazards really, so it's easy to recover and not get in trouble. So at the end of the day, it comes down to making putts. So if there is any defense, it is the greens since it is Donald Ross. So that does have some appeal, makes it a little bit interesting, but it's going to play soft. But I really like just the ability to make putts this week. You even look at like when Bryson won, yes, he gained off the tee. When Finau won, he gained off the tee, but they also gained a lot with the flat stick, a lot putting. And the same with Ricky last year. Coming off a great US Open. So I'm gonna heavily weight putting 5 to 10 feet, 10 to 15 feet. Try to look for those guys that can pop. Every player top 12 last year gained at least 2 strokes putting. Yeah, and it's a bent POA mix on the greens. It's an easy approach course, 45. It ranked 41st out of 45 last year from approach standpoint. So it doesn't delineate people there either. You don't play mid irons really. You're either hitting a wedge or even a half wedge in, or a couple longer irons for some of the longer par threes. Par 5 scoring is really important. And all that being said, I keep coming back to you're gonna have to find guys that can get hot with the putter. So show them their ability to pop with the putter, and there's gonna be some landmines. It's just the nature of this type of event with the low scoring and guys riding the hot putter. So I'll try to find some pivots this week. I'm not usually a huge a guy that's gonna pivot a ton just for the sake of pivoting. This week I might. There's no reason to play chalk. There's no blow up ability out here. So you just, the ability to differentiate yourself from the next guy is minimized if a guy's rolling in putts.
That is excellent stuff there, and I love this planting your flag on a skill that almost feels a little bit against the grain, because you're right, that bomber narrative is going to be, it's like Cameron Davis ruined this for being the quintessential just hit it all over the place and go out and win a golf tournament, has kind of ruined this golf course for casual bettors. And so I love the idea of maybe finding some guys that are a little shorter, accurate, but can get hot. I got a couple that are in mind. And just sticking to that and seeing if you can catch a little bit of lower ownership and go against the grain a little bit. I wanted to comment that if I go back and look at Rick Run Good, look at the highest correlated stats of success, like you said, approaches 150 to 175, 250 to 275. Yes, there are 4 par 5s on this golf course, which is why you're seeing those. Those are very scoreable holes. A 7,300 yard par 72 means there's going to be a lot of medium length approaches, but then putting and birdies. That's what you get. And then 5,000 square foot greens, kind of small to medium sized greens, not the massive crowns that you get out of Donald Ross. So when they're on the smaller side, I want guys that are going to have some scrambling numbers in there too. So with that all being said, you want to run through the top of the model? I have a couple of names in mind that I want to talk about, but what do the expert community say right now?
It's very interesting so far, Mike. And I would applaud our community sometimes after, majors and elevated events going into a lesser week. Some folks take the week off. We'll see next week for the John Deere and the 4th of July. But we have some decent amount of contributors so far. Leading the way at 54% mention share, Matt Wallace, $7,400, and Tom Kim at $11,000 this week. Right behind them with Aaron Rye and Taylor Pendrith. Mike, you mentioned he has some good course history here, 47% mention share. And then Maverick McNeely and Ryan Fox, as we just talked about earlier, at 33%. So those are the top 6 on the board so far. And none of them have overwhelmingly strong MPI, which is very interesting this week, given all we just talked about.
It is, yes. You'd have to jump down to 2 names if you want to get that 90 to 100 ranking on the RTG Power Index. You'd have to jump down to Minwoo Lee, who is the top spot on the Power Index ranking, followed by Akshay Bhatia coming off a solid week in the 2nd spot. So again, 2 guys that, Minwoo Lee can bomb it. I do agree with that. He can bomb it. And he does consistently gain off the tee, but he is probably one of the guys I'm curious to see where ownership's going to come in this week. If you can get a little bit of leverage here, gained in 5 straight events on the greens. So yes, he's got that length. I definitely would put him in the category of someone who's going to move it on this golf course, but he's doing it on the greens. I mean, approach and around the green play has been a little up and down, but I don't know. I'm curious where I have not looked at the ownership projections yet this week, but he is the first guy I had in mind. If I'm looking back for Minwoo, the last several starts here, T21, T24, T26, T24, and T22 going back to the Masters. Particularly interested in a solid finish for Minwoo at the U.S. Open. So hopefully carrying some of those good vibes forward.
Yeah, kind of a similar vein, and I do like Minwoo and some elements there as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to completely shy away from the guys that are in the bomber category. It's just if there's ones that aren't getting as much love as others, that's where I'd be more likely to click. But just from a guy that can be really good with the putter, Maverick McNeely's just on that next tier for us, or he's at that 33% mention share standpoint, $8,900 this week. Jeff Ulrich over DK Nation, Andy Lax highlighted him for the Golf Digest. Spencer Aguilar over at Roto Baller. He finished 7th in Canada after 17th in Charles Schwab. He's made 13 of 14 cuts this year with the only miss at the Amex. The only thing that gives me any pause about Mav is that miss at the Amex, which is kind of that's a West Coast course, but kind of a similar event to what we're kind of
Mhm.
talking about here. But he was dealing with some stuff from an injury perspective at the time. If you recall, he just came back. But I'm in on Maverick McNeely this week. I'm going to go there. Of a similar vein, I'm going to check ownership, especially in GPP style contests. But there's a lot of reasons to like Davis Thompson this week, so I think we need to highlight him as well. $8,300 in salary. He's only getting 26% mention share, which kind of surprises me and says, hey, maybe he'll come in a little lower than I think. Ulrich is also on him. Matt Gannon over, and then Alex Hunter as well. So if he continues to fly under the radar, I like Davis Thompson. And my last guy I'm looking at, wanted to highlight is Steven Yeager, and he went out and won a different course that maybe not to the extremes we have here at the Texas Children's Houston Open, but a course that highlighted ability off the tee that there wasn't a lot of trouble. You need to get hot around the greens. He was able to do that, and he's been a consistent cut maker as well. So I'm gonna be looking at Yeager at 9,400 this week too.
I like Mav a lot. I know the community likes Mav a lot. I think he can add to what you highlighted, that he owns in his 3 appearances at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. At Detroit Golf Club, owns a T21 and a T8. And I think the T8 is a good example of Mav golf, which he hasn't really played all that much, despite losing a little bit at the Canadian, which he lost 2 strokes off the tee in that T8 and gained 7 on the greens. And I think that's the kind of player that you want to get away with, especially with some leverage this week, is someone that is going to even be sloppy off the tee and make up for it around the green. So I've seen a lot that this is a really good course setup for Mav as an excellent ball striker, and then his ability to pop on the greens. The other guy that I've seen I've seen some press about him that he literally has not lost strokes total ball striking this year. 17 events, at least 17 events, hasn't lost strokes ball striking this year, off the tee approach combined.
You want me to guess?
You can guess.
Mark Hubbard.
Similar. Keith Mitchell.
Mm.
And, again, a bomber. He's always been known for his ability to move it off the tee. Been absolutely awful around the greens this year. And I think, I love owning Keith in the Calcutta, because I'm always going to cheer for him for that reason. But I think that's the thing that gives me pause, is that he's had a couple of good finishes, a handful of missed cuts, but he just is not getting it done putting. And if he's 20+% owned, I think that's going to be a tough. I don't think I have to pay like Keith, $8,500 Keith Mitchell, 20+% owned for a guy that's hit the ball great, can't make a putt. Let's go win for the Calcutta.
Yeah, we're biased here, but neither of us are playing him in DFS lineup. Yeah. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to go bet the guy. He's caught some steam in the betting markets this week. But yeah, we have him Calcutta. I hope he wins. Chris Kirk, put him in that bucket, but I'm not playing him in DFS.
One other guy that I want to call out here that he's a little bit further down our board, but he's sitting at 20% mention share, $7,000 Daniel Berger, who really just he's been playing golf this year. He hasn't played particularly well. Finished T21 at the U.S. Open. I don't know that I'm again looking at Daniel Berger's stat profile. I'm not seeing a lot here that tells me that I'm ready to go back to Daniel Berger. But we have a couple of writers that are currently on him, including Jeff Ulrich. And so it might be worth, and Alex Hunter over at DK Network, who highlights some really great value plays, might be going worth and reading up on Daniel Berger a little bit to see it. He could be a guy that's nice to get in early on, but I'm seeing a lot of red, and I don't know that he's ready to come back yet.
It's funny you highlight someone like that. There's one other guy I do want to bring up too, I guess kind of from the opposite end of the spectrum, not recommending as a play, but we're talking about the ability to pop putt, some of the places guys have had success here. I was like, well, what about Taylor Montgomery? right? I ran a quick just putting model and Rick Run Good, and if you just look at strokes gained putting and weighted strokes gained putting over the last 50 rounds, Taylor Montgomery rises to the top. I'm like, oh, maybe that's intriguing. So I was like, what has Taylor Montgomery been doing lately? Withdraw, cut, withdraw, cut, cut, T11 at players, T60, cut. No clue how he finished 11th at the players. I would love to say, hey, this is a week to get in early on a Taylor Montgomery bounce back, because he was straight cash when you go back to the fall of 2023 into the spring of 2023. But I cannot recommend that with a straight face, especially when the last time we saw him, he lost strokes putting, when that's usually by far his best metric. So
it is kind of crazy to think about how streaky that statistic is for most players, but then you have guys that gain consistently putting. It's like, gosh, you just make putts all the time. If you could just keep the ball on the planet everywhere else, think of how good you'd be.
Yeah, exactly. Taylor Montgomery. So I'm going back to the Fortnite in 2022. So way back, but gained 11 putting. That was a streak of 11, 5, 5, 5, and then you lost. But then 1, 6, 3 lost. 3, 3, 8, 1, 7 lost.
It's crazy. Just, do you think that is mental or physical?
I think it comes down to the ability to read greens and the confidence in what you're seeing. And that comes from, as we talked about last week, I was so lost in trying to putt in North Carolina, and then I lost all confidence in what I was trying to do. And yeah, he's never been great in approach, and he's also lost his driver. So that's I can't go there and Taylor Montgomery.
Fascinating case study. All right. Well, we've highlighted a number of plays. A little more work to do. I mean, I think there's a couple of guys on here that there's probably just some research to be done. Ryan Fox, Adam Svensson, Akshay Bhatia, all guys you wouldn't be surprised to be sitting near the top come Sunday. But I have to do a little bit of research to see if there's a reason to separate kind of three guys. I say Fox and Svensson sort of in the same range. And then Bhatia, if you're looking at him as the second guy in.
I have a Fox nugget real quick, Mike, since you brought him up. If you're looking if you're going the bomb and putters approach, he is 10th on tour in putting, strokes gained putting this year, and a 17th in driving distance. So that could be your guy.
That is an excellent nugget. Yeah, gosh, and Rick Rungood projecting him single-digit ownership. I mean, he could be sneaky. That could be a sneaky play this week. Often the guys that are either the former DP World Tour guys or the guys playing on their cards for the first year this year can easily sneak in low own. Just lack of awareness by the general betting public. All right, outside of DFS, we got to do our Survivor League workshop, and just to catch up the audience here, we are down to 5. We shed one at the U.S. Open. Sung Jae backing it up. God, we talked about this. We sweated the cut with Fitzpatrick. Got through clean. We're down to 5 people. And I think I haven't got an email that said anybody wants to chop it up 5 ways. So I think we keep rolling. And you sent out a few names. And as I've been kind of working my way through it here, I think it's a lock on Maverick McNeely.
I agree.
I don't think there's a reason to. You don't have to go down. The DFS pricing doesn't matter. So it's like you just pick the guys you think are going to make the cut. And I think someone like Maverick, who we've talked about, such a high floor with his putter on a course that we know demands putting, and has been pretty good off the tee. And actually has been pretty long. Like, I do think this is a really good setup for him, and I like his chances of making the cut here. He's certainly been a great run since the PGA. I would like to hear the case for Cameron Young.
Okay, and it's just a level set. With the only one, we just look at the guys over say 9K, right? Well, Mav is at 8,900. I know pricing doesn't matter, but just top of the board. The only one
we're playing studs, so
yeah. Alex Noren is the only one that's been used, right?
We've used Alex Noren, yes.
Yeah, everyone else is Flair game this week. So we're trying to find the guys we're the most confident is going to make this cut we have the whole field. The only guy we cannot use is Alex Horn. All right, I completely agree with you, Maverick McNeely. Cameron Young, I think I am softening on as the week goes on from a confidence standpoint. He was absolutely great. Well, round 3 last week, had a solid round 2 and 4, but opened with a 72. And when I go back and look at the last couple events, at the US Open, he opened with a 73. Yes, he made the cut, but he opened with a 73. At the Memorial, he opened with a 76, and till on his way to 50th. He was fine in Canada. But at Wells Fargo, he opened with a 71. Outside of round 4, his worst round of the week. So it seems to be a theme with him that round 2 and round 3 are his best rounds. Rounds 1 and 4 are his worst. So if we're looking for a guarantee to make the cut, that makes me a little bit more nervous. And I think he's going to be the most popular click. And I'm not that we're worried about game theory here, because we're just trying to get through. Who cares what other people kick? But if it's a tiebreaker, that comes into play. I think he's going to be a very popular click because everyone has him left, I'm assuming, and the bomber narrative. So that leads me to think, like, maybe Tom Kim is their second guy. He's only missed cuts this year with the player in Valero when he was hurt. He was coming off that injury. And when he started to gain some steam in Valero, he's had some great finishes. The only concern there is, like, hey, does last week hang with him and all? And then my last thought, and I'll give it back to you, or maybe we look at Mark Hubbard, 16 for 16 this year.
We'll start with Cameron Young. Cameron Young, I don't know if a T2 at the 2022 Rocket Mortgage Classic does anything for you. He Cameron Young to this golf course and actually putted pretty well. But 2022 was the year of Cameron Young. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I was going to get 6.
7 top 3s. Right? No wins. 7 top 3s. Coming into the Rocket Mortgage, yes, he missed the cut at the Scottish Open and the US Open, but he had just finished second at the Open Championship. He had finished third at the PGA Championship, second at the Wells Fargo, sat third at the RBC Heritage. He was having an incredible spring and summer. And it was the year of Cam Young. And this year is very, very different. He has flashed at times. He does have a handful of top 5s this year. Like, he's still Cameron Young. He still could get it going. But gosh, his last 3 months have been really frustrating. He finished T9 at the Masters, but he's gone 62nd, 34th, 63rd, cut at the Canadian, 50th, 67th at the US Open, and then obviously had the one good round that vaulted him up the leaderboard. We're just looking to make a cut. I do think Cameron Young should have no problem making the cut this week, but I'd like to lift my floor a little bit higher, and not trying to game theory this. I don't think I have to pick Cameron Young this week. Right.
I'm with you, especially when you look back and he lost 6 straight putting at the US Open. He lost 4 at the Memorial.
It's a different golf course. We know this is a golf course. We want length and putting, and I'm not seeing that from him on the greens lately. So I unclicked Cameron Young earlier today, and I clicked in Tom Kim, and I said, I know Tom is playing 9. He's the most expensive player in the field DFS wise. He's playing 9 events in a row. I think, or this is going to be his 9th week in a row. So you do wonder a little bit about fatigue, but the kid's 22 years old, and like he's living for this. He literally has no friends besides Scotty Scheffler, and it's only because Scotty Scheffler doesn't really have any friends, which is a take I have from the Travelers, which I found the whole dynamic to be very funny. And I wish, no laying up again, like they really exposed this, but I was feeling this on Sunday, which is like Tom Kim was that pesky little brother who is just like looking up to Scotty, like, hey, hang out with me. This is so much fun, isn't it? And Scotty's like, dude, get out of here. I'm trying to like make history. And you could just
love the soundbite when Tom Kim goes to him like, it's just like our rounds back home. Only there's 100,000 people watching. And like, Like Scotty needs a reminder of how to stay in the moment.
And that's like this, the over eagerness of Tom Kim is, I don't, it's not endearing really. And I think Netflix tried to make them seem like best buds, and I think social media has too. But to be perfectly honest, I think they're just the guys that don't. Tom doesn't have friends because he's here making his way on tour and is thrust into stardom. Sky doesn't have friends because he's a huge family guy and just trying to, be a legendary golfer. All this to be said, I think Tom is going to keep riding this wave, and I think he does enough to make the cut this week. He's doing all the things right, and he has the ability to gain 3-4 strokes putting. Occasionally, Memorial, he finishes T40 30, loses 4 strokes on the greens, but for the most part, he's got the pop putting ability. He's an excellent ball striker. If the ball striking goes sideways on him where it hasn't in 8 weeks, again, can I sleep on that? Yes.
I think I like it. I like that we arrived at the same conclusion the more we dug in. The only other one I was even going to consider outside the guys I mentioned was Minwoo, but I think that's much riskier. So I like it.
Minwoo to me is now I do think he's not going to be quite as low owned as I would hope he'd be, but Minwoo to me is a DFS play. I don't think I'm running Survivor out on Minwoo.
Yep. I think we're aligned. I like it. All right, Tom Kim, let's go. The one piece I was going to mention that really surprised me as I was getting more in depth into this. Do you actually know who the 4th highest ranked golfer in OWGR points is in this field? Behind Tom Kim, Cam Young, and Akshay is 3rd.
This is a great question. I would have gone. Off the top of my head, I would have said Alex Noren, just on riding on just his very solid cut making ability, but I'm probably wrong.
He's further down than what I expected. We have rooting interest in this gentleman. Is Mr. Chris Kirk. Where the hell is Chris Kirk gone, by the way?
How is he the 4th highest OWGR in this field?
He's 33rd still.
Interesting. I don't think it's a Chris Kirk week, but for me, it's always a Chris Kirk week.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He talking about someone that's been god awful putting this Chris Kirk. Outside of the US Open. Yeah.
Could it be an Aaron Wise week?
Is he in the field?
No, I don't think so. But...
Oh.
I just would.
Yeah, come on.
I'd like my $200 mistake to be redeemed. Is all I want. All right. Well, we've gone long. We've talked a lot about the Travelers. I think we got some hot takes. Name game. Kyle, were you able to prep something?
I did real briefly, but okay, I couldn't figure out, and I almost interrupted the show at the start to be like, hey, how do I put this into your fancy format, Mike? Because I didn't know what to do. So I got it. All right. So we have 4 teams here, of 3 guys each. So we have one that is one of my favorite names to try to say on each team. We have a golfer on each team that one of us likes to talk about a lot. And then we have a random person that just made the salaries work to make the 3. So team 1 is Michael. Oh, I know how to say this. I can say it outside of the pod, but Theo Bjornsson.
It's pretty good.
No, it's not. A little but he's 8K this week. And then he's paired with one of Jordan's favorites, Chris Gotterup. I mean, come on, Jordan just loves the name. And then the last part of that team is Daniel Berger to make it $21,700. Next, we have Thorbjorn Olesen, along with Eric Van Rooyen, one of Mike's favorites, and then Luke Clanton, who's a rando, but isn't a very intriguing name this week.
He must have turned pro after the U.S. Open, as did Neil Shipley.
That's a good question, because we have like 6-7 of those young guns in the field this week. So
wasn't Clanton the guy that Shipley was duking out low am with? Yeah. So I think we talked about this last week. Post U.S. Open is a very popular time to turn pro, because most of the AMs that were exempted in the U.S. Open as amateurs can't turn pro, or they lose their exemption as an amateur. So they wait until the week after. But PGA Tour wise, the week after was a signature event, so they weren't getting into that. So a bunch of them end up at the Rocket Mortgage. Now I'm not exactly sure how they get into the Rocket Mortgage as recently turned PGA pros, unless it's all sponsored invites.
I think a lot of them are sponsor invites because one of the articles I was reading is like, hey, John Deere, you need to be very aggressive in getting some of the young guns in the field this week.
Interesting.
The next crew, we have Mac Meisner, just a great name. Davis Thompson, who's quickly becoming a guy I seem to like to talk about a lot. And then Eric Cole, rando to make it even. Also 21-7. Every team so far, 21-7. And then lastly, we have Rio Hisatsun. That's what you told me.
That was really good. That was really good. Yeah, no, you've been practicing. That's great.
Yeah. And then Ben Griffin, I'm just going to say that the listeners like him. And he got some surgery on his eyes this week. Might be partially blind still. So, and that's fun. And then Doug Im, the rando make it even. Also 21-7.
Remember when Eric Cole was like a top 20 machine?
Remember when Eric Cole was like $10,500? He's $7,000 this week.
All right. Well, do we have a draft order? I guess we're going back to I'm a little confused because
well, there is a Travelers in here, so you made one at some point. Oh, never mind. We punted on last week. My bad.
We did. Yep.
So you get to go first, Mike, and then me.
You're right.
And then Jordan, and then the listeners get whoever's left.
All right. So I get to go first. I think when you went through it, I think I wanted team 2. I'm gonna take Luke Clanton, and is that right? That's season team 2.
Yep, and you had EVR in there, your favorite.
Yeah, I'm taking Luke Clanton riding his nice finish at the U.S. Open, rolling that into the Rocket Mortgage.
That is where I was gonna go as well. So. Great pick. I think this is just going to play out well because now I'm going to go Davis Thompson, Mac Meisner, Eric Cole, who I tagged as, the guy I like to talk about a lot is Mac Meisner. So by default, we should give Jordan Chris Gotterup's team.
Perfect.
With Daniel Berger and Mr. Michael. And then that leaves my boy Rio and Ben Griffin and Doug Gim to the listeners.
It's good stuff. Thank you for pulling that together. Last Rocket Mortgage piece, is there a betting card or at least betting insights?
There is a betting card this week. I just decided to ride the wave with some of the popular picks out there. We've talked about some of these guys so far, but Maverick McNeely, am in at 35. I think that one's tanked like a rock. I'm curious to see where it is actually now. I'm trying to look really quick. But a lot of folks are on there this week, and for all the reasons we've talked about. He is currently down to 28 even on DraftKings, so that's interesting. He's getting a lot of love in the RTG model. Can't say I fully understand. Well, I get why, but I'm not going to go there because we talked about it. This is a week to pivot, and Matt Wallace is not a guy I'm going to eat a lot of chalk with, but sure, I'll throw in a 1 unit bet at 60-1 just in case I'm completely wrong there. And then I'm on my boy. I'm on my boy Rio. I bet him a lot earlier this year. Yes, I've talked about the guy a lot, but this should be the type of course that fits him very well, sets up for him on the tour. He's at 80 right now on DraftKings. And then lastly, if we're just going to find a guy that can get super hot with the putter, and that has the ability to hang towards the top of leaderboards when he is there, he either leads or he's either up there or completely ejects. But that's S.H. Kim. At 110, like that as better as a place bet, but through a half a unit on an outright as well for fun.
Does the name Nick Bienz mean anything to you?
Is that the dude that chugged 3 beers in the Monday queue? We should have
That
talked
is-
about him off the jump. Yeah.
That is part of his story. And I mean, go out, follow Monday Q Info, look him up on Twitter, read his blog, all that stuff. This dude follows the deepest stories in professional and semi-professional golf. But Nick Bienz is basically a state open player. It's like the highest level of professional golf he's played, which is a state open. And he shows up at the Monday Q for the Rocket Mortgage and throws in a 65, and he's kind of sitting there thinking he's in. And a couple of good scores come in late, and he realizes he's going to be in a playoff to get into a PGA Tour event. And he chugs 3 beers before going out to the golf course. And what is his comment is, it's the only thing that was going to keep me from throwing up.
It's a perfect amount, is what he said, I think, too, right? Yeah.
I was unsure. Monday Q, Ryan French writes a really great article kind of pumping him up. Like basically soak this in. You are in uncharted territory. This may never happen again. Like, take it seriously, but also don't take it too seriously. And he has a couple of really, really interesting pieces of advice, which is like, if you're feeling nervous on the first hole, just hit driver. And if it goes 40 yards right, doesn't matter. Someone's going to find it for you. Like, it's just, don't worry about anything while you're out there. Just go and do your thing. Did the playoff goal 8 holes?
Oh, I didn't look into it that far. I just saw a little bit about him drinking 3 beers.
Yeah, I can't find the info, but in this pump up piece, he says something about an 8-hole playoff, which is equally insane if you drink 3 beers and then had to go play 8 more holes of golf. But it's a cool story. I think everyone's gonna be rooting for him. One of the cool things that Ryan did was he posted his Venmo QR code and just said, like, make this guy's week, buy him a drink, send him some money. So it's a cool story. Make sure you follow along with it through the weekend.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you for bringing that back up. I forgot. I wanted to talk about that on the jump. So it's going to be fun to talk about. Apparently, Pat, the Pat McAfee show is having him on as well this week.
Cool. Yeah, I'll say that I know in more ways than one a number of Nick Bienz types that still have this pipe dream that there's the right things go right, and you're dropping your desk job and you're playing on the PGA Tour. So it can happen. Well, with that, I guess we'll move on. We'll close the show out. You can follow us on Twitter at RTG Podcast DFS. New event preview episodes every Wednesday on our YouTube channel, Reading the Green, and on every major podcast platform. We'll be back in a week with the results of the Rocket Mortgage Classic and preview the John Deere. See you.